My name is Dan Chavas. I'm an associate professor of atmospheric science in the Department of Earth, Atmosphere, and Planetary Sciences at Purdue University. Yeah, this year has been unusually active for tornadoes. We are near the record for most number of tornadoes to date through mid-April for the United States. So the normal by this time is usually around 300 tornadoes, and we are up near 500 tornadoes so far this year. So last year was an especially active year for the whole year. It was the second most active on record for total number of tornadoes across the US. And so we are well above the pace from last year to date, but last year many more of last year was closer to normal by this time of year, and then had many more tornadoes later in the year, especially towards the end of the year. So how things will shape out for the rest of the year this year, I'm not sure. But yeah, last year was quite active for the whole year, and then this year, our first few months have been among the most active on record. Yeah, so overall tornado frequency has actually been decreasing broadly over the United States over the last few decades, which may be surprising. But there's, in particular, that shows up in the places where we typically think of tornadoes occurring, which is Tornado Alley over the Great Plains, Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, and in the springtime. And so there's been significant decreases there, but kind of broadly in the springtime, we see fewer tornadoes. The one exception to that is in the southeast US, which we call Dixie Alley. So Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana. There has been a significant increase in tornadoes there, specifically in the wintertime. So that's become really a new emerging hotspot for tornadoes that's almost comparable to the traditional tornado alley over the Great Plains. The shift in tornadoes, where we're seeing an increase in tornadoes, particularly in the southeast US in wintertime, is also problematic because those tornadoes often are more frequently form at nighttime when people are sleeping, which makes them especially vulnerable. And then the area tends to have more forest and more hills and small mountains that make it difficult to track storms and tornadoes and make it harder to forecast them. So the trends that we're seeing in the southeast, there's the tornado side that's important, but then there's also to consider the vulnerability side, that it's generally a more vulnerable area, both because they can form at night and because of the nature of the terrain and land in that area. And I should say that there's also a higher percentage of mobile homes in that area, which are especially vulnerable to tornadoes. Yeah, it's difficult. Tornadoes are very difficult to forecast. So in general, we've actually gotten much better at predicting where we think tornadoes are possible, where thunderstorms might develop that could produce tornadoes. That forecasting has improved dramatically over the last few years and decades. But for an individual storm, we still don't know exactly where a storm will form, whether a storm will become severe or produce a tornado. And sometimes we don't know that until the very last second. So we might have two storms that look identical, and one makes a tornado and the other doesn't. And we really don't know why. So that's something, there's some basic science of understanding why tornadoes form that we still don't fully understand. And then also just sometimes there's some randomness where some storms may produce tornadoes and some may not. And that's something that we just kind of have to live with. So we're always doing our best, and I think we're getting better at forecasting and getting especially warnings out for tornadoes, but sometimes they can still form with basically no warning. Yeah, so if there's a tornado warning where you are, you should seek shelter immediately. Just assume that the tornado could hit you at any time, and you have very little time to respond. So you immediately seek shelter. You want to go to a low-lying place. If you have a basement, that's the best place to go, and you want to be away from windows. If you don't have a basement, you want to go to an interior room, I guess, again, away from windows. That's the best place for protection. If you're outside, you want to go to as low-lying of an area as you possibly can.